Organizers of the world's greatest bicycle race have insisted that the show must go on, and ideally not on closed roads. The postponed 107th edition of the Tour de France is expected to take to the streets of Nice on August the 29th. But what lies ahead and around each corner? An always unpredictable French spectacle is on course to be as unpredictable as ever due to COVID-19. Unique to all sporting events, competitors share winding roads, small villages, and mountain passes in close proximity with frenzied fans. Considering our current health crisis, what exactly is the risk involved? Joel Felicio is the coordinating producer of NBC Sports Tour de France coverage and a veteran of 19 tours, soon to be 20. Coverage of the epic race is always intriguing, but considering the uncertainty and unpredictability surrounding this year's edition, 21 stages and more than 2,100 miles to be contested entirely in France, surely it will present some unforeseen challenges to organizers, teams, and media. So how exactly will Felicio and NBC Sports handle coverage of this unprecedented Grand Tour? Hello and welcome to another video edition of ATRadio. I'm Brian Pinelli. And joining me now is Joel Felicio from the NBC Sports complex in Stamford, Connecticut. Hello, Joel. How you doing?
I'm good, Brian. Good to see you, buddy.
Great to see you as well, Joel. So it's been a few years. I'm absolutely amazed and impressed that this will be your 20th tour. Such an incredible race. I guess, first off, Joel, what has been your fascination with this incredible sporting event over so many years?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think you can identify with this when you came, I think, in 2004. But before going to the Tour de France, I honestly didn't really know much about it. Went there in 2001, and anybody who goes can understand that when you're there, it's just such a spectacle. I mean, it's just amazing. Like the storylines that happen every day, it's like a soap opera, and in the terrain, you're driving around France into all these crazy places and in the mountains and the scenery and the ocean. It's just a huge event wrapped up in a whole month, every day, different storylines, like I said, and from you get the bug right away. You get the bug. It's tiring, but you just get this bug. It's hard to explain.
It's an adrenaline rush, obviously, for the media following behind, a couple hours after the riders, and just an absolute spectacle. So this year's edition, a few weeks away, August the 29th in Nice. As you talked about, as we like to say, expect the unexpected with the Tour de France, which is, part of the fascination and part of why it's such an amazing sporting event. But, considering our situation here now, what we've been dealing with COVID-19, what can we expect from the rescheduled 2020 Tour de France?
Yeah, I mean, it's an understatement, right? That's the theme on so many aspects of this year's tour, from actually how the race is actually going to play out to actually how it's being produced, which I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about. But yeah, I mean, over the last like 4 months or so, it's been an evolving process of what are we going to do with this event, because COVID is a moving target, as everybody knows. It's been changing almost weekly. So we were talking with Christian Veneveld just the other day about like what he thinks is going to happen, and he's like, I don't know. This is like, the tour is always like you don't know what to expect, but this is times 10, just on an epic proportion this year. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. To my knowledge, this is the first Tour de France that will not take place in July since World War II. But tour director Christian Prudhomme said the race must go on. They want fans involved as much as possible from a safe distance. Obviously, protocols, bubbles for the teams, for organizers, in the media compound. So it seems like a good plan. But I guess what I wonder about, Joel, how do you allow fans to the race and on these roads and passes in the French Alps and Pyrenees, and make sure things are safe? I know it's not entirely up to you, but what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I was asking the same question months ago when I was in discussions with the ASO about whether or not fans would be there, because, I'm thinking like, how's this going to look if there's not one fan? And then again, if you flip it on the other side of the coin, how do you stop people from standing on the side of the road? It's just, miles and miles of road. That's impossible, right? And while they do want fans, it will be a little bit more limited, especially around the start areas and the finish areas. That's going to be a lot more self-contained, so that the riders are protected and shielded. You're not just going to be able to be a fan and walk up to the team bus and get an autograph like you would, which is almost kind of like one of the cool things about the tour. You can get up and close to the riders, so that's a little different. The other thing they're doing is on the climbs, they won't be allowing the camper vans to drive up, and I'm not 100% sure if that's every climb or just some of them, but I know that will also limit a lot of the fans on the mountains. And I don't think you'll see quite as many, but if I know the fans in France, they'll do whatever it takes to get up there. So there will be a presence, which is cool.
Yeah, obviously such a scene, such a spectacle. Everyone tunes in for the aerial shots, the overheads, the castles, the mountains. I mean, that's just an event in itself. And obviously covering so many tours, the routine, right? You sleep in 19 hotels over 21 nights and, long hours in the truck. And, you're moving quickly throughout France, through the Pyrenees, through the Alps, obviously culminating as always in Paris. But to my understanding, this time around, Joel, you'll be producing from the studios in Connecticut. How do you expect this will be? Will it be very difficult? And just overall, how different for you and the NBC Sports team?
Yeah, that's right. We will be covering the tour. The productions will be based in our Stanford facility, which I'm actually in the office right now. I think everybody knows this, but if there's actually a ban on Americans going into France right now, and so that happened. I think they announced that at the end of June for July, and at that point we had to figure out a solution, and that's when we reconstructed and came up with a whole new system. And so we have a good facility in Stanford. Luckily, technology has really ramped up in the last couple of years, and so we can get all of the feeds back into our offices in Stanford. And at the end of the day, and if you're watching at home, the goal is for you not to even notice that the production's being done in Stanford rather than at the finish line in a TV truck. Like it shouldn't be any different, other than when you see Christian Vande and Paul Burmeister and Chris Horner in the studio, they'll be in a studio here in Stanford rather than at the finish line. But other than that, we'll still have a little presence on site. We'll have a moto reporter in the race. He'll be doing interviews, and so that'll be our eyes and ears out on the course, and that should make it look and feel the same as our normal standard productions. Is it challenging? Oh yeah, there's some stuff in my mind that I'm hoping is smooth, but it's just one of those new normal things. Right now, the NHL hockey is going on, and they're producing that similarly. They're producing a lot of that out of here, and it's been going pretty smooth. I was involved in that, so yeah, I'm optimistic. I think it'll be smooth.
Will you survive without the morning French croissant reviews and the Bordeaux at night?
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be a different situation. You said 19 tours. It was gonna be my 20th. I was looking forward to that. I'll have to wait. Hopefully, we'll be back next year so I can get my 20th. You get a little plaque from doing 20 tours on site. I do the croissant reviews. I'm sort of trying to figure out if I can find some croissants locally in the Stanford and do a couple of those.
They won't be as good. They won't be as good.
Won't be anywhere near as good. I'm gonna have to research to find some authentic French croissants for sure.
Hey, Joel, what about you didn't mention Phil Liggett and Bob Roll? Obviously, these guys have been covering the tour for an eternity. Fantastic broadcasters that make the coverage. How will they be worked into the broadcast? Will they travel the 21 stages?
Yeah, no, same thing. Bob's not allowed as an American to be in France, and so we're just gonna have him do the commentary from here. But what is interesting is Phil lives in England, so we have a Sky Sports in England. So Phil's just gonna, go down to the Sky Sports facility. It's gonna be a unique situation again, but it's kind of standard in these times. Phil will be in London. Bob will be here in Stanford. Nobody at home will know the difference.
Fantastic technology in this day and age. Wanted to get your thoughts on comments by the UCI president, David Lepartient. He recently said, and to my knowledge, something like 70% of professional cycling races have been canceled, during this pandemic, and obviously as it continues. But he basically said every race is at risk of being canceled, including the Tour de France. I know we just touched upon it, but your thoughts on his comments, and I know you said you're optimistic, but I assume, like anything, it's hard to predict what could happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously something I've spent a lot of time thinking about and coming up with contingency plans and how we're going to handle this. But you can only get so worried. It's really out of our hands as the production producers and the production staff. We hope the race goes on. The Dauphiné happened last week, the Criterium du Dauphiné. There was only 5 days, but I think that was a good dress rehearsal for how cycling can move forward. And there's been other handful of other races, but the ASO did the Dauphiné, and that was pretty smooth. I'm impressed with the infrastructure that they set up. There's a lot of new protocols, a lot of safety measures happening on site, and I am optimistic, as you say. But at the end of the day, if something goes wrong and it gets canceled, that's just out of our hands, unfortunately.
Yeah. Obviously, a massive production, as you talk about, with ASO, the organizers, obviously UCI, cycling governing body, and the many rights-holding broadcasters, obviously NBC Sports. Just curious, did you get involved somewhat in the conversation with UCI and ASO, what you'd like to see from a production perspective? Obviously, they've been doing this for years, but, you obviously always want to improve the coverage where possible. So what's the communication like between NBC and the other stakeholders?
Yeah, 100%. The ASO are really, really good partners, to be honest. They're constantly looking for feedback on how we think that they can make their product better for us, how they can tailor make things better for us. So there's conversations all year long that we're having, whether it's an idea that I've come up with that I'm asking if they can pull off, or whether it's an idea that they've come up with that they think, will I be interested in doing? But I got to say, like I said, we've done some things recently that have come out of those conversations where for years we wanted the cameras to be live on the bikes. And we had that last year for the first time with these little cameras on the bikes. We can go to those cameras live, when they work. Sometimes it's hard technically, but it's a cool little, break from the normal coverage to get inside the peloton. And, there's a couple of ideas I'm working on for the future. This year we had to take a step back and put them on pause. But yeah, I got to say the ASO have been great. And they're really going out of their way to make everything work this year because they know that it's a different situation for us. So it's been, lots and lots of conversations.
Yeah. Just briefly to jump away from the Tour de France, they've also announced recently that the UCI Road World Championships, which are expected to take place in Switzerland end of September, well, they've been canceled. Apparently, they're looking for a new organizer. Do you know anything further about that? And does NBC Sports plan on covering the World Championships if they happen?
Yeah, we only know what the press releases that were sent out and the communications sent to us at NBC. Beyond that, yeah, we have the rights, and if they find a new location to hold the event, we will absolutely be broadcasting that live in its entirety every day, for sure. We're hopeful, but it seems like a tall order to find a new place this quick when it took them 2 years to plan for the existing one. But we'll have to wait and see.
Such is the life we're living right now.
Yeah.
Well, always, I'm sure in the back of your mind, and one of your main challenges, I mean, needless to say, interest in professional cycling hasn't been what it was back in the Lance Armstrong days before the trials and tribulations. As an American TV producer, producing a largely, at least traditionally, European event, how can you increase interest in the United States? And, are there any up-and-coming U.S. riders to keep an eye on?
Yeah, so, when the ratings were high, like you're speaking of in those years, we all know that there was a different situation going on. Our philosophy since then has been to just cover, not try to force anything like, oh, this is an American angle for do this, do that. But whatever the stories are at the Tour de France, whether it's a Belgian guy, an English guy, a French guy, we're covering the stories. If we cover the stories and we have the characters that are interesting, which sometimes you have them, sometimes you don't. There's exciting guys. When Mark Cavendish is winning sprints, he's pretty interesting to watch. So that's good.
Tyler Farrar. Some of those battles with Tyler were amazing.
Yeah, him and Tyler. That was a good little back and forth there for those years. But on the bright side, because we feel like there's a core audience that loves the sport for what it is. Like I said, it doesn't matter the nationality of who it is or what team, but we do have some things if you're an American audience this year with Sepp Kuss. That's definitely the brightest future American hopeful guy. He's on the Jumbo-Visma squad. He just won a stage in the Criterium du Dauphiné. 25-year-old from Durango. Really, really, really strong, talented climber, and guaranteed you'll see him in the mountains, leading the Jumbo-Visma guys at the end of those tough stages for sure. So, we'll definitely try to have him as a good portion in our coverage, interviewing him and talking about as much as we can whenever he's part of the coverage. But if he's not doing anything, we'll just do normal coverage for him.
Yeah.
And if somebody else is leading the classification, that becomes the story, then we'll exploit that. Yeah.
All right, good to hear. Hope for the best for U.S. cyclists. And, speaking of U.S. cyclists, if you don't mind, just wanted to briefly ask you, as a passionate guy about the sport who's, been through a lot, ups and downs, do you ever tune in to Lance's podcast, The Move? Obviously, these days he's on with, his old buddy, George Hincapie, and their tour director, Johan Brunel. Any thoughts on Lance's podcast?
Yeah, I mean, when we're doing the Tour de France, what's really convenient is as soon as we get in the car, the podcast is pretty much starting. So it makes for a good listen while you're riding from one stage to the other. I won't be driving stage to stage this year. I'll be coming to my office and probably turning it on and listening here. But yeah, absolutely. I read and get as much cycling content that I can just to get different perspectives from everybody. And, Lance knows cycling. George knows cycling. Johan is really educated.
Unbelievable.
He's really impressive. So yeah, it's always good to listen to those kind of things. And, the Velo News podcast as well. Like as much content I can get in, the better. To them, that I want to feel like I'm educated and I got all the bases covered.
Yeah. So I put you on the spot a little bit, Joel. I feel like you're the guy to ask, or at least one of the guys to ask.
Okay.
How about a prediction? Last year it's this young Colombian Bernal. Wins. Colombia goes crazy. Team Ineos. What is the likelihood that he can make it back-to-back victories? And just quickly, who are his other challengers?
Wow, you really did. But normally I'm doing this to my commentators. I'm not used to this, but yeah, if I can think real quickly, it seems to go against the grain because Ineos/Sky has been dominating 8 of the last 9 or something. So it seems silly to pick against them, but it just didn't look that great in the Dauphiné, and I don't want to put too much into that. But based on what's happening now, I got to go Primoz Roglic for the win. The guy's just a beast. He crushed it at the Vuelta a España last year, was rolling in the Dauphiné, didn't even look tired.
Yeah. And
that team is super strong. They got Kruijswijk, maybe not with the collarbone, the shoulder dislocation that he had in the Dauphiné. Sepp Kuss, as I mentioned, and they recruited Tom Dumoulin. I mean, that's another Grand Tour winner. So they have really stacked team on that screen. Robert Hessink. On the flip side, with Ineos, Chris Froome's coming back from the injury. Who knows what his form is? It didn't look great in the Dauphiné, and it's only 10 days left to the Tour. Geraint Thomas wasn't firing too well.
Yeah.
So can Bernal do it alone? He's really talented, right? Yeah. At the same time, I will say, last year's Tour was a little bit gifted to him at the end. He never really got challenged because the big stage that he would have got challenged was the mudslide stage. So, also if Thibaut Pinot didn't have the knee problem, he would have been challenged. And so, yeah, Bernal won. I'll give it to him, but, I wouldn't. It's not a foregone conclusion he wins this year. So, again, I'm going Primoz Roglic.
I like it. Slovenia, that'd be fun. Slovenia would obviously go nuts if that happened. One or two more quick questions, Joel. You've got about 11 days to prepare. So I'm sure unlike ever before. What's that?
I better get going.
Yes. What do you have to do with NBC over these next 11 days to be ready for the Grand Départ in Nice on the 29th of August?
Yeah, well, there's a lot, but a lot of it right now is communication so that everybody knows what the plans are. There's a lot of stuff that's still coming into place. Staffing, for example, we just secured finalized who the staff would be. And a lot of preparation, getting all the graphics and all the things that you're going to see in the show and the features and all the edited pieces are starting to get done. And then, what I do is I got to map out. I look at this is kind of a weird thing to tell people, but I map out, I look at every single stage and I figure out where I'm going to take a commercial break along every stage for all my commercials, so that when I'm doing the show, I can have that ready to go, and I don't have to waste time every day doing that. We're doing a lot of what we do is also we call all the teams and we have little 20-30 minute conversations with talent to talk about the storylines there. And so there's a lot to do in the next 11 days. I'm a little overwhelmed, but we'll get it done.
Well, you know what, Joel? At least you'll be sleeping in your own bed every night. That's the silver lining to this all. You'll be fresh every morning.
Yeah, that's going to be amazing. I'm not complaining about that part.
Hey, Joel, thanks for taking the time on ATR. All the best with NBC Sports' coverage. We look forward to tuning in and, enjoy the time at home. What else can we do at this point?
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Brian. It's good to talk to you.
All right, Joel. We'll catch up again soon. Thank you very much. Yep.
All right. Take it easy.
And thank you for tuning into this edition of ATR Radio. For more than 25 years, Around the Rings, your number one source about the Olympic movement, aroundtherings.com.